Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. Welcome back to the Country Diary Journal. Then, I know that I've not been about for this for a couple of weeks. Excuse me. My granddaughters came to stay for Easter and they kind of took over my time a fair bit, and ever since they've gone I've been playing catch up with videos for an online workshop that I've got, so this kind of took a little bit of a back seat. But I need to get back to it now because I kind of want to get it all done, dusted and finished. So just to do a quick recap, this is the journal that we've been working on using our Country Diary papers, and we used, or I used a excuse me, my chest is bad again at the moment. I used a notebook that I purchased, and so I've got tea and coffee dyed papers, book pages, I've got some dried flowers that I've laminated, little flip pocket, some vintage ledger paper, glassine bags, seam binding, created pockets with some of the images from the books. This was a piece of mulberry paper that I created a window with, and then created this pocket on the back side of it so that shows through the window. Put lace on the edge of the page. We've got a double envelope flip here. We've got a top tuck pocket at the top of that page. The envelope, which I've yet to finish, in the centre of the signature. Another laminated, an honesty seed. And then there's this long pocket here. Some lace trim across the top. Mulberry paper again. A big pocket there. Another laminated flower. This is a belly band pocket with a sliding butterfly and flowers on it. Glassine bag. The ledger paper again that opens up. Some silk, sari silk. Another pocket created with the page from a book. This one is an acorn leaf with some wrapping from some flowers, and then I attached it to fabric and then attached it to the page. And then I've got an actual book page there as a flip out, and then that's the back cover. So that's a quick recap. And the front cover was made with handmade paper with flowers in it as well. Now, whilst I've been doing other things, I did do some videos called The Little Things That Count, little bits and pieces that you can create to use in your journal, and I will be showing how you use those in the journal. But there are other things that I just want to cover first. The first one being some tags. Now, these are just some basic simple tags, so you can use things like your punches, you can use things like your dies that you've got to cut out tags and create your own tags. They're easy enough to do. You can also purchase tags as well of varying colours and sizes. But what if, just what if, you have a book image that you want to use and none of your pre-purchased tags are the right size, none of your punches are the right size, and none of your dies are the right size. So the first one that I want to do is to utilise this book page, and I'm actually going to make it into a book tag. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to trim off this excess around the edge of the page. Now, I looked at the page at both the front and the back of it, because when I fold it in half, I've got this image here, and I don't mind this text here. I don't mind this text here on this side because that relates to that image on the front, and then I've got this nice text and image on the inside as well. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit of that excess around the edge. Just make sure it's nice and lined up. Okay, so I've trimmed all that excess off and the page number. Now I could go around and I could go and distress around the edge of the paper. I'm not, just for time's sake, but all you basically do is we're going to fold it in half lengthwise and to make sure that we're lined up along this edge and that our corners are lined up as well. And then I'm just going to crease it. And I've now created almost like a little booklet really, except I'm going to cut the tops off. Now along this folded edge here, I'm just going to cut a triangle off, so I need to decide on what angle I'm going to trim it. Okay, there's no right and wrong, and if you're not too sure, make yourself a template if you want. So I'm going to save that corner, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to line it up with this opposite corner, and then I'm going to use that as my guide for cutting off that corner, so now I know that they are the same. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a hole at the top so that it looks more taggish like. Okay, so I'm just going to find the centre and poke myself a hole, and I've cut through both pieces, but I'm actually only going to tie my seam binding to this front piece. Alright, now because this is only book paper, if I put my seam binding through this hole and pull on it, it's just going to rip, so I might as well reinforce it. Now you can buy reinforcer rings, or you can make your own. So I've got this piece of craft card, and what I'm actually going to do is I want 1, 2, 3, 4, because I want one for the front, one for the back, one for the inside. So I need a total of 4. 2, 3, 4. So I've evenly spaced them. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my distress ink, and I'm just going to ink up. Helps if you have a bit of ink on your dibby dabby dooby, Carol. I'm just going to ink it up. I want it just that little bit darker. And then I'm going to use my 1/2 inch punch, circle punch. I'm going to turn it upside down, and then I'm going to centralise the hole that I've created in the centre of that circle, and then punch. And I've created a reinforcement ring. The nice thing about making your own is that you can do them colour wise to match with the pages that you're doing. If you buy reinforcement rings, they tend to come white or black, not patterned. Now you can ink them up and you can stamp on the ones that you purchase, but if you don't have any and you don't have any money to go out and go and buy any, make your own. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of PVA glue to just put around the edge, and I don't want much. Let's put that to one side and do the second one and the third, because this glue won't dry immediately, and if I allow it to just form that little bit of a skin over the top, it means it shouldn't, she says with cross fingers, ooze out at the side if I apply any pressure. Okay, so I'm going to put my first one on the front, and I need to make sure that that hole lines up with the hole that I punched earlier. Okay, and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to put one on the back. Now I know that I'm not putting my seam binding through the back page of this tag, but this will have it all matching. And then I'm going to put 2 on the inside. So I've now got a little booklet tag. Now it's not the sturdiest of things because it is basically just a book page that we've used. All right, so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to use my book pages again, but this time I'm going to attach the paper to a piece of card to give it some body. And I'll show you how to do the seam binding in a moment as well, because I'm going to show you on the other one. Okay. So let's say we want to use a page like this. So again, I'm just going to trim off some of this excess. Because I don't want too much of the white. So I'm doing the two sides first, and then I can do the top and bottom. Now I think I'm going to leave the top for the simple fact that I want to have enough space to be able to punch a hole in it. So I'm actually going to leave it like that. Now I have got some file folders, and I've got the cream ones like they have in America. Now we don't have these over here, believe it or not. We have brown, and we have green, and we have blue, and we have pink, but we don't have this lovely cream colour. And so, as most of you already know, I have a pop-up shop on my Facebook group, and it's once a month, and I do sell these in the pop-up shop. They are part of a pack, so the pack is all to do with ephemera bits and pieces, so that you can create your own ephemera. So it has things like guest checks in, and ledger cards, ledger paper, graph paper, I forgot what the cards are called now, it'll come to me. Anyway, there's some of the file folders in there as well, but they're this lovely shade of cream, and if you've got vintage photo distressing, they actually ink this paper up beautifully. So I'm actually just going to trim up and ink up this paper. Now again, I need to cut off this top edge with the triangle again to form my tag shape. So I'm going to cut off that corner, flip it over, and trim off on the opposite corner, so that I know now that I've got equal pieces cut off each side. I'm now going to glue this to this cardstock. Now you could cover the whole thing over and just stick it to the card and then cut it out. The other thing that you could do is you could put glue around 3 of the sides, so that then you create a pocket between the page and the tag card. All right, now I'm actually just, which one do I want to do? I'm going to glue the whole thing on, and I'll show you one that I've done with a pocket in a minute. So I'm going to cover the whole piece over with glue, and I'm just going to use my Collall glue. I want to go fairly close to the edge, but not right up to the edge, and I need to make sure that I've got the whole amount covered on the back. Ooh, I'm losing. There we go. And then I'm just going to stick it. Now what I've actually done is I've left a gap here at the bottom, because I want to be able to create a border all the way around the actual book page. You didn't remind me, did you? I didn't ink it up before I put it on. It's your fault, not mine at all, nothing to do with me. Okay, let's trim off this excess. Now I'm just going to do it visually, but of course you could measure if you so wished. And I'm just going to cut out a rectangle. So I'm cutting down the 2 long sides and across the top. Excuse me. Alright, so now I can just trim off those top corners. Now everyone tries to do really fancy tags, and I am going to do some of those, but sometimes some of the simplest tags work just as well as doing the fancy ones. Right, I'm going to ink it up now before I forget. So I'm going to use my little bit of plastic, and I'm going to use my vintage photo, and I'm going to do a small circular motion around the outside edge. And because I've left a narrow border of the card to the actual page, it means I will actually catch just the edge of the page as it is, and I'm trying to work within the same area on my piece of plastic as well. And I'm going to pay extra attention to the corners and just add that little bit extra on the corners as well, which helps to give it a slightly more vintage feel about it when you put a little bit more ink on the corners. Okay. Now I'm going to poke a hole in the top again. So where's my little hole punch there? Of course, if you've got an Ujima Bob flip, you know, one of the posh ones, you can use those, because I've forgotten what it's called. I do own one as well. I wouldn't mind, but I own one. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more of these, and I'm just going to do them to the craft colour, I think. So 1, 2, because I want one for the front and one for the back. And I'm going to turn, it's a 1/2 inch, yeah, my 1/2 inch circle punch. Okay, a little bit of PVA glue. So yeah, everyone tries to do fancy schmancy tags, and as I say, I am going to be doing some, but sometimes you don't always need fancy, because otherwise, if you're doing other fancy things in your journal as well, it does need that little bit of simplified versions of things as well. So it's nice sometimes to just do a real simple tag. In fact, I want to ink the back side of this tag up as well. Okay. So just whilst that glue's setting off. Now you'll see now better on this back side how vintage photo just ages up this cream cardstock really nicely. Pay slightly more attention to the corners again. careful as you go over that big carol because the glue might not have set. Okay, but you can see the kind of colour that it gives on that cream card. It works really nicely on it. Now I'm going to use my green seam binding. I haven't dyed it. This piece I just wet with some water and crinkled it, but it probably needs heat setting more than anything. I'm just cutting a length of seam binding off and I'm folding it in half and then cutting that piece in half, and then I'm going to pinch two ends together and just pop them through from the front through to the back, and laying the loose ends away from the tag top itself. I'm then going to use a piece of this twine that I am highly allergic to. Needs must for a journal, eh? And I'm going to fold it in half again and cut it. And then I'm going to place those two pieces of twine underneath the seam binding, wrap them round to the front and tie them in a knot. And then I'm going to knot them again. Okay, so now I can trim off some of this excess seam binding, and you can do them various lengths as well. Don't feel that you've got to do them all the same length. I think my scissors have given up the ghost on cutting anything now other than paper. And then I can cut my pieces of twine as well so that they're varying lengths. I don't want them all the same. Ugh, horrible stuff. So look, that one wants cutting a bit, doesn't it? There we go. So even just something as simple as attaching a book page to a piece of card and inking it up is just as nice as doing something ultra fancy. Okay, now I want to just quickly show you this is another one that I made in the booklet format. And so what I did was I cut out the book page, I stuck it onto the piece of card, I then folded the piece of card so that it now makes a booklet form. Okay, so we've got that one, and then this was a big tag that I made along similar lines to this, but obviously much bigger. So these are just very plain and simple tags, but they give you a really nice effect without being OTT, and they will sit in my journal beautifully. Now, as I say, I am going to be doing some fancy tags, and these are the ones that I'm going to do in the next video so that if you want to do something a little bit different and a little bit more fancier, then I will show you in the next video how to go about doing those. Have a look through your book pages, see what images you want to cut out and create a tag with, and just have a go. Alright, speak to you again soon. Bye for now.